Daf Yomi, tractate Bava Batra, page 107b, actually was in the middle of an idea, which was on 107a, so we'll start from there. The Gemara clarifies the various opinions. Manda Amar Nidon B'Manda Milsa Mitziasa Rabbi Lezer Beri Tzadok Omer Nidon B'Tishim Kasavar Ara Tishin Shavi. Now we're on 107b. The high Kamar Esrim Katai Esri Lachore. The high Dika Amar Mane Katai Esara Lekame. The one who says that the property is assessed at 100 dinars holds that the middle of the two extreme assessments is followed. Rabbi Eliezer, son of Rabbi Tzadok, says that it is assessed at 90 dinars because he holds that his land, now on 107b, is in fact worth 90 dinars, and the one who says it is worth 20 selah, which is equivalent to 80 dinars, errs with an assessment that is 10 dinars behind. In other words, too low. And the one who says that it is worth 100 dinars errs with an assessment that is 10 dinars ahead. It's too high. Therefore, the average of these two assessments is followed. Adirabba. The Gemara raises a difficulty. On the contrary, Hayadam meya ve'asrim shavya v'aykom adamane kotoi esre lachoyre v'aykom shloishim kotoi esre lakame nakot mehatre. The Gemara raises a difficulty. On the contrary, say that this land is in fact worth 110 dinars, and the one who says it is worth 100 dinars errs with an assessment that is 10 dinars behind, and the one who says it is worth 30 selah, which is equivalent to 120 dinars, errs with an assessment that is 10 dinars ahead. If so, the average of these two assessments, 110 dinars, should be followed. The Gemara replies, in any event, grasp the first two assessments in your hand, as neither of them takes the assessment beyond the sum of 100 dinars. Acherim omrim, osin shuim benehem, umishalshin, Kasavar high ara tishin glasa tilsa shavya. High ka amar esrib. Ka ta'e tlesar betilta. Lachore. The high the kamarmane ka ta'e tlesar tilsa kame. Uvedinhu delema tefe. The high delok amar savar misatam. Misatai deka metafina kule achavre. The Batra teaches that Acherim say that an appraisal is performed of the sum between the two most extreme assessments and then divided by 3. The sum is then added to the lowest assessment. The Gemara explains this opinion. Acherim hold that this land is in fact worth 93 and 1/3 dinars. The one who says it is worth 20 selah is equivalent to 80 dinars errs with an assessment that is 13 dinars and 1/3 behind. And the one who says it is worth 100 dinars errs with an assessment that is 13 dinars and 1/3 ahead. By right, the assessor should have said more, meaning that quoted a higher sum, since according to this calculation he should have said it is worth 106 and 2/3 dinars. And the question, he did not do so, and the reason that he did not do so is that he thinks as follows: it is enough that I did this much above and beyond the assessment of my colleague who says it is worth 80 dinars. Therefore, he lowers the sum of his assessment to 100 dinars. Adirabe, just the opposite. Ha'ara me'at lo yisrat lo shavya. Hai kamar. Managatoid leisutlas, Zechari Vahai, Commercialization toys leisutlas the coming. But within who come to fame, he saw the Katavini Kulehai, Achavarena court, me has Treka Maviadech, Timitoras me alone mapkile. Gemara raises a difficulty on the contrary, say that this land is in fact worth 113 dinars and 1/3. And the one who says it is worth 100 dinars heirs with an assessment that is 13 dinars. Excuse me, and 1/3 behind, and the one who says it's worth 30 selah, which is equal to 120 dinars, heirs with an assessment that is 13 dinars and 1/3 ahead. By right, he should have said more, quoted a higher sum, since according to this calculation, he should have said that it is worth 126 dinars and 2/3. And the reason he did not do so is that he thinks as follows: it is enough that I add this much above and beyond the assessment of my colleague, who says it is worth 100 dinars. The Gemara answers, in any event, grasp the first two assessments in your hand, as neither of them take the assessment beyond the sum of 100 dinars. Amar Rav Huna said, Halacha ke'acherim. The halacha is in accordance with the opinion of acherim. Amar Rav Ashi, acherim who say that the sum of the difference between the two most extreme assessments is calculated and then divided by 3, and this sum is added to the lowest statement. Okay, that's the opinion of acherim, and that's what Rav Huna is saying is the halacha. Amar Rav Ashi, Tamad acherim lo yadin and hilchos hadavinan to kavasei. Tanu negoyla yisrael shum b'neihem. Shalosh namar Rav Huna hilchos hadavinan negoyla. Amar Rav Ashi, Tamad adayin negoyla lo yadin and hilchos hadavinan kavasei. Rav Ashi said, we do not even understand the reason of acherim. Shall we then establish the halacha in accordance with their opinion? The judges of the diaspora taught a brayta that accords with the opinion of acherim in the previously cited brayta, and an appraisal is performed to determine the sum of the difference between the two most extreme assessments, and then that sum is divided by 3 and added to the lowest assessment. As I said, the halacha is in accordance with the judges of the diaspora. And Rav Ashi said, we do not even understand the reasoning of the judges of the diaspora. Shall we then establish the halacha in accordance with their opinion? And that's the end of that. New Mishnah. The Mishnah says, if one says to another, I'm selling you half a field, without specifying which half he is selling, an assessment is made of the field, which is then divided between them, and the buyer takes half the seller's field. Okay, the next case is, if the seller says, I'm selling you half the field that's on the southern side of the field, an assessment is made of the northern and southern sides of the field, which is then divided between them, and he takes the half from the southern side, and he accepts upon himself to provide space for the fence between the two halves of the field out of his own property. He accepts to provide out of his own property the space for the larger ditch and the smaller ditch, which are meant to keep animals out of the field. And how wide is the larger ditch? 6 handbreadths. And how wide is the smaller ditch? 3 handbreadths. Now the Gemara says, that was the Mishnah, the Gemara says, Amar Rav Chiya bar Abba, Amar Rabbi Yochanan lokeach notel kachush shabo, Amar le Rav Chiya bar Abba, Rabbi Yochanan, v'ha'anam mishamin b'neihem, Tanan, Amar le dachalt kanafta, kafnaita, Bava targumina miseifa. The Gemara says that Rabbi Chiya bar Abba says that Rabbi Yochanan says, when one sells half of his field to another person, the buyer takes the leaner part of the field, the part that is of lower quality. Rabbi Chiya bar Abba said to Rabbi Yochanan, but didn't we learn in the Mishnah that in such a case, an assessment is made of the field, which is then divided between them, which indicates that the buyer and the seller are given similar parcels of land? How then can you say that the buyer takes the leaner part? Rabbi Yochanan said to him in a sarcastic manner, while you were eating dates in Babylonia and neglecting your studies, we explained the matter based on the latter clause of the Mishnah. neglecting your studies, we explain the matter based on the latter clause in the Mishnah, which proves that my understanding is correct. Diktani Seifa Chetzi B'darim Oni Machalach Sham B'nei Minatul Chetzi B'darim V'ma Misham B'neihem V'Chetzi B'darim Amalei Elal D'Behacha Nami Dameh. As the latter clause teaches, if the seller says, "I am selling you the half that is on the southern side of the field," an assessment is made on the northern and southern sides of the field, which is then divided between them, and he takes the half of the southern side. If taken literally, this passage gives rise to a difficulty. Why is an assessment made of the northern and southern sides of the field, which is then divided between them? In any case, didn't he say to him that he is selling him the southern half? Let the seller give the buyer the southern half of the field. Why is an assessment necessary? Rather, it must be that the matter is more complicated than it seems. And the Mishnah is referring to money. That is to say, the buyer takes the southern half, but the seller must reimburse him with the money for the difference in value between the two halves of the field. Here too, in the first case, the Mishnah is referring to money. The buyer takes the leaner half, but the seller must reimburse him with money for the difference in value between the two halves of the field. The Mishnah teaches that the buyer accepts upon himself to provide out of his own property the space for the fence between the two halves of the field and for the larger and smaller ditches. A sage taught in a Batra, the larger ditch is dug on this side, while the smaller ditch is dug on the side closer to the field. Both this and that are dug behind the fence.